This episode is sponsored by Free Market Kids. Join the league of families who are transforming family time into unforgettable Bitcoin learning experiences. With our Hodl Up Bitcoin mining board game, you're not just playing, you're building bridges, creating memories, and unlocking the brilliance of the future one block at a time.
Hi everyone, welcome to Orange Hatter. Today you're listening to a conversation I had with Toshi. Welcome to Orange Hatter, Toshi. It is so amazing to have you here. I cannot wait to dive into all the stuff that you're doing across Africa and especially for women. But we'll just start really quickly with your background. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Oh yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Sally. Thank you for putting this together. Thank you for having me on board. So my name is Tochi Onya. I am Nigerian. So I'm from the eastern part of Nigeria. So we're I'm from a certain tribe called the Igbo tribe. Yeah, so because Nigeria is, divided into, different ethnic groups, different tribes, and, we have over 503 languages spoken in Nigeria. Yeah, so I've been in the Bitcoin space for approximately 3 years. Yeah, 2 to 3 years, right? I haven't been so long in this space, but since I, got convicted, I just went head on into Bitcoin. So far, I've worked for different Bitcoin companies and a couple of Bitcoin projects here in Nigeria. When I first left uni in after my university, I started working for Paxful in Nigeria. Paxful is a Bitcoin company, and we had an education center here in Nigeria, in Abuja, Nigeria, where we usually host educational activities, seminars, workshops, and meetups for young Nigerians who are looking for, who are trying to understand what Bitcoin is all about and the potential of Bitcoin to the Nigerian youth and the economy of Nigeria and Africa. So I got on board on Paxful and started working as a Bitcoin educator, where my team and I, we were able to impact over 3,500 young Nigerians across different states in the country. And although I've left Paxful, I'm currently with Noons, and it is spelled Noones. So Nuns is the first Bitcoin messenger app and a P2P Bitcoin marketplace where you can come on board and interact with other Bitcoiners, buy and sell your Bitcoin. So currently with No Ones, I'm still an associate for education and training where I'm educating and onboarding users actively on Bitcoin, basically spreading the good news of Bitcoin and orange pilling as many people as possible. So yeah, so far I would say I've actively been a Bitcoiner since I left my university, and here I am now.
So it sounds like you're in your maybe early 20s. Is that correct?
I am 25.
25. Okay. So, can you, for the people who are not familiar with what life is like in Nigeria, can you give us a quick overview of, especially when it comes to money, of what's going on in Nigeria?
Ah, wow, it's really not been very smooth, especially, early this year we had what we call the cash crunch. So last year, towards the ending of last year, the Central Bank of Nigeria decided that they wanted to redesign the old Naira notes, particularly the 200 Naira notes, 500 Naira notes, and the 1,000 Naira notes. So according to them, in the constitution, that the currency is supposed to be redesigned every 8 to 12 years, and it hadn't been done in a really long time, and so they wanted to embark on that journey to redesign those particular Naira notes. And so the process wasn't a very smooth process because the CBN is Central Bank of Nigeria. So the CBN gave a particular deadline for the circulation of that old Naira notes design because they wanted it to be out of circulation. Hence, the banks should stop giving out that money, that particular old Naira design to the people. And whenever people come in to deposit the old Naira note, it should remain with the bank without it going back into circulation again. But this wasn't the case. The old Naira notes kept circulating and circulating, and then the deadline kept, approaching. And the central bank gave like an ultimatum that once it gets to this particular date, that old Naira note becomes invalid. It's no longer a legal tender. So it's kind of like gave an uprising, especially when we got to the deadline. And CBN, the central bank, was like, oh yeah, we've gotten to the deadline, nothing's going to happen. And so we see lots of people at ATM points forming long queues just to be able to have access to the newly designed Naira notes. And because, of course, the newly designed Naira note wasn't already in circulation. In fact, I would say it was on a scale of 1 to 10, I would say like just 2 over 10 of the new design of the Naira note was already in circulation. So it was crazy. In the whole 36 states of Nigeria, not a lot of people had access to the new design of the Naira notes. Hence, people were beginning to form long queues at different ATM points, at different banks. People were forming long queues for hours. Some people would stay for more than 12 hours just to be able to have access to the newly designed Naira note. And, at some point, I had to make trips to several locations, to see what really is happening. And I think I should still have some of the videos. I don't know. So I started making videos so that people would see what really is happening. And it was crazy and it was devastating. You'd see people would come out as early as 6 a.m. just to be able to withdraw their own money. And at the end of the day, they would not even be able to have access to the money, because at the end of the day, you see the ATM would stop dispensing cash, and you see these people who have left their house since 6 a.m. stranded with no money at all. So it was really, really devastating. There was no money. People, for the first time in Nigeria, people didn't have fiat to buy and sell or to make payments for stuff, because for a long time, cash is king in Nigeria. A lot of people still use cash to buy things, to make payments, and all of that stuff. So cash is still king in Nigeria. So it was really devastating for business owners, for families, and all of that. So thinking about how the whole financial ecosystem has been, you see that there's a whole level of control. The central bank, or I would say a certain group of people have so much control about money. Now, I was going somewhere, so I stopped to get a cab, and I saw this man. He was kind of like in his mid 40s or early 50s, and he was really devastated. He was just standing there, and he looked really helpless, and he was just telling the other guy that he came out to withdraw 5,000 naira, and 5,000 naira is actually less than $10. If you see how crazy that is. So he just came out to withdraw less than $10 just so him and his family can have something to eat for the day. And he wasn't able to do that. So he didn't even know what to do. He didn't know how to go home or what to tell his children or family about, their feeding and sustenance. So he was just very devastated. And I was just thinking, it's not like this man doesn't have money. He probably does have money in his bank account. But here he is stranded because he cannot access his money because of the whole process of redesigning Naira and all of that. So, at some point I began to see why there is an urgent need for things like something like Bitcoin. Now, had it been there was a situation where we had this mass adoption of Bitcoin, or we're already in the phase of hyper Bitcoinization in Nigeria, of course, people wouldn't be so devastated as they were during that cash crunch, of course, because Bitcoin is free, it's decentralized, everybody can have access to. There's no form of huge centralized control with Bitcoin. Everybody is free and fair for everybody. And I'm sure if people knew about Bitcoin, if people knew that they could actually receive money with Bitcoin and go out to buy food, go to the restaurants to buy food, pay for their cabs and all of that, people wouldn't be so devastated in this kind of situation. And so I began to see that Bitcoin is not just a fancy technology for we in Nigeria. It's a real life solution, because there is a need for people to see what they can do with Bitcoin and see how they can escape the current realities that we are seeing here in Nigeria, and how Bitcoin can help them escape these harsh reality. But eventually the whole situation calmed down, and the CBN reversed its decision with the cash crunch, and so just things gradually came back to normal. But then the problem is still there. The fact that CBN reversed its decision doesn't mean that the problem has disappeared. As a matter of fact, the problem is still there, and it needs to be addressed as urgently as possible. So yeah, what I do is to orange peel and educate as many people as possible about Bitcoin. So if I go to a restaurant, I talk to them about Bitcoin. Oh hi, do you can I make payment for my food with Bitcoin? All of that, just to make people realize that Bitcoin is actually money. Bitcoin is beyond a speculation. So Bitcoin is basically money. As much as they can use the Naira for their transactions, you can as well use Bitcoin for your daily activities and your lifestyle, basically. So yeah, so far that's basically the ecosystem, the financial ecosystem in Nigeria so far.
So if Nigeria is mostly handling cash, do you find that it's difficult to convince them that something digital can also be money?
I wouldn't say it's difficult to convince them that something digital can also be money because Nigeria is already working towards getting its own CBDCs. They call it e-Naira, right? And of course they know that it's a digital version of the Naira. And Nigerians are very, I would say, quite familiar with cryptocurrency. So they already know about cryptocurrency and they know about virtual transactions. So I wouldn't say that it will be difficult convincing people about digital payments or about Bitcoin. Now, the only problem, from my experience as an educator, is people's concern about the volatility of Bitcoin. That's just where the major concern is for business owners. I've tried to orange peel a couple of business owners, and they're like, okay, say a barber, for instance. So someone comes into the barber shop to cut his hair, and let's say the bill for cutting the hair is, let's say, $10, right? And then the barber sends his wallet address to his clients to pay him the money. And then, let's say the barber didn't spend that money that day and he had to wait till the next day. And then he probably comes in the next day and then he sees that the amount in his wallet has, gone down by, let's say, 0.5%. I'm sure Nigerians would get frantic. They would be like, "Oh, what has happened to my money? Where is my money? Where did it go to?" And all of that. So that is usually, I would say, that's what makes it difficult in my experience. Orange peeling people, especially business people, because I believe that if we are able to orange peel as many business people as possible. Now, when I mean business people, I mean Nigeria has a lot of small business owners. As a matter of fact, the last time I checked, Nigeria has over 500,000 small businesses, right? And all of these businesses, of course, they make transactions, they send and receive money, they buy and sell and all of that. So if we are able to orange peel as many small business owners as possible, making them see that yeah, you can receive payments in Bitcoin and you can as well make payments in Bitcoin such that they can have that the Bitcoin logo on their shops and stalls so that people can see that oh yeah, Bitcoin is accepted here. I believe it'll be like a strong turning point towards the adoption of Bitcoin in Nigeria.
Yeah, I think that's one of the sort of questions on the top of the list when I talk to people who are not Bitcoiners yet is, well, okay, I buy Bitcoin and then what? Like, how do I spend it? And of course, that comes down to how many businesses accept Bitcoin in exchange for their goods and services. Can you go into? I'm just really curious. So you're obviously very passionate about Bitcoin, and you mentioned that there's a cash crunch. But what was life like for you growing up in Nigeria when it comes to the handling of money, whether it's through just hearing your family and friends talk about money, or do you guys experience like a lot of inflation crunch, or I mean, just help our audience understand a little bit about like what it's like to grow up in Nigeria.
Oh, interesting question. So, I would say Nigeria has this. I think the major problem in Nigeria right now when it comes to finance, when it comes to money, is the level of inflation. It's crazy how what we are seeing now with inflation. In fact, I think we are currently in a stage of hyperinflation in Nigeria because growing up, of course. Okay, let's look at the exchange rate for instance. Currently the exchange rate between Naira and the dollar as at today is 904 Naira for $1. And previously it wasn't so. Like we've had at some point we were having 100 Naira to $1. But now from 100 Naira to $1, we are now having 904 Naira to $1. And Nigeria is It's an economy that highly depends on importation, right? We are always importing a lot of things. 80% of consumption in Nigeria is imported. Imported meaning that we have to spend dollars to import these things, and export is really the ratio of export we have in Nigeria is very minimal to help us curb, or balance the exchange rate. Now that's it for that. Growing up, I always hear people talk about how the exchange rate between naira and dollar just keeps getting bad. And while like kept when I started understanding things, it began to make sense to me how the whole exchange rate has started affecting even the standard of living for people in Nigeria.
Thanks for joining us today and learning with us today. If the discussion with our guest resonated with you and you would like to dive deeper into the world of Bitcoin, don't miss out on joining the Orange Hatter Women's Reading Club. The meetup link is in the show notes. Also, if there are women in your life whom you think would both enjoy and benefit from learning more about Bitcoin, please share Orange Hatter with them. Until next time, bye!